And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode... And welcome to Understanding Photography. Take that, turn that down. Yes, episode 238. Today we're talking about a photo shoot I did with Madam Jo and Devine Tension. A couple of drag queens in Dumfries, southwest Scotland, not where you'd necessarily expect to find them. So yes, that was a lot of fun. So that's really what I'm going to be chatting about today. So stick around and yes, we'll make a start. So yes, welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 238. As usual, getting the technicals mixed up right at the beginning. Nothing much changed in 238 episodes. So yes, so here we are live on YouTube, as you can tell. And so yes, if you are watching live, then leave a comment. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you are based, and let me know what the weather's doing, and we can get the chat going. Now, I suppose I should say Happy Easter. It's Easter Sunday today, and because of that, I generally think at least most of the regulars will probably be away doing Eastery things. Either that, or you get caught up with family events. It's a bank holiday weekend, all these kind of things. So might not be quite so busy on the live show, a little bit more perhaps on the catch up afterwards. So as I see, actually, we've got two comments in already, so we have at least two people here. VG says, "Good evening, friends from Chennai in India," and Janet is saying hi from a cool Richmond Hill, Ontario in Canada. So, opposite ends of the globe at this point. So that's kind of fun. So yes, I don't know. Is it just going to be three of us? It says there's a few more sitting in the wings who haven't said hello yet, but. It's always a few people who like to watch but don't actually comment. But if you've ever felt like you wanted to comment, you could just now, while there's not so many people watching. Less embarrassing. Right, okay, so yes, welcome and happy Easter. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I'm talking about Madam Jo and Devine Tension. So drag queens, yes, drag queens, not something that's been a major part of my life, but I first met Madam Jo at a fashion show that she was the MC basically for, and I was doing a bit of photography. And then end of last year, got in contact with Jordan, the creator of Madam Jo, to start sort of chatting about the idea of doing a potential photo shoot. And just before Christmas, we did a double shoot, basically. We had, one was up on top of on a balcony, kind of overlooking Dumfries, and the other was inside a pub. So these are the shoots that I'm going to take you through. Yes, so now, I suppose when I say he, she, this is where we're kind of into the world of pronouns. Something is a little bit more, well, I don't know. This is a bit where I start to show my age a little bit. Now, it's not to say I have any problems with it. It's just trying to work out, and as always, it's not wanting to cause offence in a world that I don't know. So what I'm going to do is, generally speaking, if I'm talking about Jordan or Dylan, who are the guys who created the characters, then I'll use he. If I'm talking about Madam Jo or Devine Tension, who are the wonderful personas, then I will use she, because that is how they are presenting. Now, if either Dylan or Jo happen to be watching and want to correct me on that and would prefer I use they or anything like that, then let me know. I will do my best to accommodate. Right, okay, now, yeah, it's just, I don't know, there's the odd thing about even saying this out loud, just sort of makes me feel old and awkward. But I hope you'll all be, I'm sure everybody's vaguely forgiving. Meg's joined us and says, "Afternoon, everyone," and VG is recommending she, her, hers for pronouns and stuff. So right, okay. Now, so where are we gonna start? Quick little update on Smug Points. So Smug Points accumulated so far across the course of April. Essentially, VG and April are both on 40 smug points, while everyone else is somewhere between about 5 and 20. However, next week we are having the picture within a picture challenge. I will talk about that again at the end of the podcast. So that's a chance to earn extra smug points and send your pictures in for the challenge. Oh, Adrian's joined us and says, good compromising pronouns, happy Easter. I'm glad you could join us, Adrian. Okay, great. So we got 4 people scribbling comments. Better than I was expecting for an Easter Sunday. Okay, so where are we going to go then? Let's if you just a quick reminder as well, if you have to be watching live, then click the like on the actually, even if you're not watching live, click the like on the video. It helps the algorithms, all that kind of stuff. Robert's joined us as well. Says happy Easter from Texas. Great, glad you could join us. Okay, so where are we going to start? Let's I'll tell you what. Let me stick up an image here. And the first thing I'm going to start with really is like I said, we did 2 shoots, and the first one was up on the kind of top 4 flat apartment for you in America up here. So this is just a kind of a shot from down below. Unedited quick shot with my phone while I was out, but basically top of this building up here, you can see that there's a little kind of balcony patch up here, and that's really where we were doing the shoot. Now if I click on to the next shot, this was kind of the view from up there, which was rather nice. So this is the view from one direction, so it gives you a sense of now what was happening in terms of light, because of course this is about photography. And what I'm going to be talking you through is the decisions behind making the photos that we did. And essentially what we have here, we're looking across the roofs of Dumfries towards, if anybody local happens to be watching later, this is Criffel, the local sort of dominant hill landmark. Criffel is there. So we're kind of looking across the River Nith. You might recognise, again, a couple of the bridges that cross the River Nith here. Halford's in the background. Rosefield Mill was just kind of sitting on the other side of it. And so it was a cloudy, broken cloudy day. We got little bits of rain here and there. The light was constantly changing. It wasn't really the same from shot to shot. Actually, to give you a kind of wider sense, I did a little panoramic with my phone just to give you a sense. So you can see that kind of patch of bright sky where the sun was coming through here. But essentially on the edge, and I kind of did a kind of what was it, 3/4 of the way round thing. And so you can see this is like the view going across, and this bit here is this top of this balcony area, which is where we decided to do the outside shoot. Now, so just inside here, let's give you another quick behind the scenes shot. Here we have then, this is Madam Jo, and in red here we have Devine Tension. So drag queens in Dumfries. Now, to my understanding is that there wasn't really much of a drag scene in Dumfries. Dumfries is, well, to give anybody a sense here, given the fact that most of the viewers tend to not be local. Dumfries is a town, I can't remember exactly how big, maybe 30 to 40,000 in size. So in terms of towns, big urban places, it's not a particularly big town. In terms of southwest Scotland, it is the biggest town. It is the county town of Dumfries and Galloway. And we're here roughly about kind of 70 to 80 or so miles away from the big cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh, and about 30, 40 miles or so from Carlisle, which is the biggest city in northern England, closest to Dumfries. And then it's about 2 hours drive over to Newcastle, which is much bigger but a bit further away. So in a way, when you kind of look at the map of Scotland, Dumfries kind of sort of sits in a very rural space. It's mostly, if you're looking down on Google satellite images, you've got this sort of urban patch in amongst a lot of green. And then most of the rest of the towns in Castle Douglas are considerably smaller. In Dumfries and Galloway. Castle Douglas, local town that I'm right outside this window here, is more of a population of about 3,000 to 3,500. So Dumfries is about 10 times the size, but it's still not that big. As such, something like a drag scene is something you would generally expect to see in the cities or much larger towns than Dumfries. And this was spearheaded, much as my memory from conversations go, essentially, well, by Devine Tension and then Madam Jo, and then the two of them coming together and really kind of creating a scene out of nothing. There wasn't a nascent drag scene here already. And so they kind of pushed it, created it, grown it, and it's now become a thing. It's quite, it's getting quite big. The two of them, very often, they're up in Glasgow where there's a bigger scene up there, but it's sort of spreading out. And there's, for me, it's just exciting. It's a massive respect thing it's that notion of, because it's art, it's creativity, and it's creating something that wouldn't be there. This drag scene wouldn't exist if they hadn't made it happen. And in a world where there's so much going on that we can feel utterly powerless, utterly helpless, like anything we do doesn't make a scrap of difference, when people create something out of apparently nothing, then that's a reminder that we do have control to a degree. We might not be able to control the world, but we do have a larger degree of control over our little bit of the world than we necessarily feel that we do. And then, so the drag scene, for me, an absolute unknown. I know it's not, the RuPaul's Drag Race, this kind of thing, isn't the kind of thing I tend to watch on TV. It's not the circles I move in. My age, I kind of, memories of childhood of watching Danny LaRue. A handful of people will get that reference on 1970s TV. And then it's pantomime with the Dame. And that's pretty much about it. And then maybe once you get into the early 90s, you've got Eddie Izzard, comedian, cross-dressing. But that's not drag as such. That was transvestism. And it's just a different kind of thing. At least I think. But the actual kind of drag scene as we see it now, which is a basic, and when you have, but then it's about creating these personas, these characters. And what struck me immediately when I first saw Madam Jo out there performing in front of a mass of people was the power of this character, of this persona, which also means there's a drive and a power and an interesting person behind who's created that persona. And so when I met with Jordan, to begin with, there's this notion of, well, okay, let's meet this person. I'm fascinated by somebody who's got this level of creativity and drive, and to be able to kind of create this character and go out and then perform in front of people, whatever that character is. Because, I'm going to go off on other philosophical tangents here. I'll save that one for later. Let's get on with the photo shoot. So here we have Madam Jo and Devine Tension, and they're getting ready for the shoot. So let's a quick kind of click with the camera. And so we went out onto the balcony, and the first photo I'm going to show you from the shoot is basically, these are tester shots. These are, I go click, see what the light is like, and decide what I'm going to do next. So this is the first shot in the kind of natural light. And as you can see, that bright patch in the sky here, it's now very bright. The camera on auto ISO is taking into consideration it's quite bright, so it's darkening down the rest of the photo. And then what we find is that Devine and Madam Jo are in kind of quite dark, quite shadowy. And even if I do a quick edit and I play around with this in Camera Raw and brighten things up, fine, I've managed to bring out a bit more colour, a bit more lightness. This patch feels strong here. It's not a great light. I mean, it's an interesting scene to begin with. I mean, we played around with poses, you'll see this afterwards, but this is just a test shot. Okay, you two stand there, let me go click, let me see what's happening in the back of the camera. Because so often, it doesn't matter how much you think you know what the light is doing, it's until you go click and you can see it in the back of the camera. That's what really tends to give you that sense of, oh, okay, now I can see this, now I know what I need to do next. And what I decided I needed to do next was I needed to set up some artificial lights. I set up a couple of speed lights, flash strobes, off-camera flash. And what I decided to do was I put let me show you the photo then. So this is an edited one of the photos that, finally made the cut and such. And what we can see here now is, well, the sky looks darker. And what I've done is I've taken the exposure down. I've increased the ISO, I've taken the exposure down, and then so that I'm making it so that the clouds look nice and dramatic. And you can still see the town behind, but but at the same time now, they are lit by the speed lights. And so just over my shoulder onto the left here, I've got my large softbox, which is creating the key light. But then what I've also done, you can see this little blue patch just here. Just inside the doors, I've put my second off-camera flash with a little blue gel, little kind of piece of blue plastic, thin blue plastic or perspex or whatever, across the front of it. And so that then is casting a blue light. And it does two things. One, it creates just a little bit of edge lighting, catches in the sequence here and what have you, just kind of separating them out. But it also, in this case, kind of adds to that sense that there's almost like there's a party going on in the inside. So there's a party happening inside the apartment, and then, these two have come out onto the deck to, maybe get a breather, enjoy their champagne. So it's that kind of sort of slightly party feel. Now, what became partly, slightly interesting, so I play around a little bit. To begin with, I'm trying to get a shot of, we want to get the town behind them. We want to have this idea of they're on the balcony. You can see Dumfries behind. And so, but there is a thing that's going on here, which, in fact, I'll come to in a moment. So then, here's one getting in closer, making it more about the two of them and, more hint of the town rather than them with more of the town behind it. Always when you get in closer, it's then a case of there's always the relationship between your subject and the background. And the more the environment dominates, as opposed to the more the subjects dominate, and you're sometimes looking for a balance. And different photos, even if you've got the same photo but zoomed in or whatever, essentially the same angle, it can change the mood and feel. So to bear in mind here that I wasn't looking for a single photo. What we're looking for is a collection of photos, and some photos are going to work better in some places. Sometimes you want to have that kind of environmental photo, hey look, come join the party. Sometimes you're going to want to have those close-in shots, and understanding that you're creating a selection of photos so that when the right piece is needed, you've got something in your portfolio to find something most suitable. What have we got? VG says a wide angle lens, lovely shot. Yeah, well, basically I'm using my 24 to 70mm lens, and which on my camera, when I go to 24, does create more of a wide angle. And there's at this point here, this one isn't wide angle. This is more, I'm sitting back and zooming in, and the zooming in is compressing the depth of field, for anybody who remembers the technicals on this. So essentially it allows these two to be in focus, and Dumfries itself is going slightly out of focus, and that then again separates them from the background in the same way that the light coming onto them is separating them from the background as well. So that's kind of playing around with your technicals. Now, one of the things that's kind of going on here is that both Madam Jo and Devine Tension are considerably taller than me. They are both well over 6 foot. I mean, compared to Devine Tension, Madam Jo here looks small, is small, a couple of inches smaller. But next to me, I'm already cricking my neck looking up at Madam Jo, right? So in order to take this photo where I'm looking straight onto them, this little bar of balcony here that you can see just here, I've basically hoiked myself up onto it. So I'm sitting on there so that I can get a shot which is of a, kind of an eye level shot. If I jumped down, when I kind of came down, I'm suddenly shooting up a little bit. So we have this shot where now this is more kind of my eye level. But this kind of became slightly interesting. I started suddenly realizing, well, okay, it's all very well me having this notion of, sorry, Adrian said, little folding stool required. Not a bad idea. Yes, a little kind of folding stool might have been quite a, little steps or something like that might have been quite a useful idea. Except that what I found interesting here is if you think about the personas that they have created, because this is drag, this is not trying to be, it's not cross-dressing in the sense of they are trying to be women. What they are is they are men dressed as women in a much more complex. So the fact is, Jordan keeps his beard so that Madame Jo, she has a beard. Devine here, big hairy chest. There's no, well, both of them have got hairy chests. There's no attempt here to sort of hide the masculinity under the femininity. The femininity is an exaggerated femininity. And this is all part of the kind of drag scene. That it's not about people disguising themselves or pretending or doing a kind of trans shift in that way. It's about a characterization of playing with gender and gender stereotypes while at the same time undermining them and having fun and creating personas, and then ultimately creating entertainment through it, using these personas by messing with the gender stereotypes. And so the thing is that with both of them, at 6'2", 6'4", whatever, I'm 5'5", 5'6", depending on whether you measure me in the morning or the afternoon. They are dominating male presence. Then in drag, actually it becomes, I suddenly thought, well, okay, let's shift with this rather than the kind of, because there's nothing demure. They're not trying to appear that kind of feminine. There's a dominant masculinity within the feminine. And so I thought, well, okay, what if we drop a level? What if I go down a little bit further? Actually, this shot here just gives you a slight sense of the size difference. Here, a quick selfie that we did. I'm kind of on tiptoe. It's already pointing down a bit. You can see I'm considerably smaller than the both of them. So, but to come back then to this then. So actually, I thought, well, okay, if I crouch slightly and let's look up, let's allow that kind of height and size and power dominance mood to kind of come into the photo. And so we started playing with that. And then again, getting a little bit lower, getting a bit lower again. And at this point now, we're using that dramatic sky as the backdrop. Not so worried about the balcony, not so worried about the view of Dumfries, but actually this then becomes the really powerful shot. What have we got here? Adrian says, this is where I think you're correct in your how I will address them during the stream. So what we're looking at here, I think this I do, and bearing in mind as well that this isn't just, none of my photo shoots, or very rarely when I'm photographing a client, is it about just my interpretation. The photo shoots are collaboration. So we have half an idea, and then I'm constantly showing them what's going on in the back of the camera. And at the point that I showed them the back of the camera where we're really kind of looking up, they both kind of lit up. And it was a sort of sense of, right, okay, we've caught something. So we really started to take that idea and play with it. And now I kind of come down and we've got these giants. And that sense of power, dominance, and it's still playing with you because they've still got, the dresses and the makeup. And it's cutting through normal expectations of what you think a man should be, what you think a woman should be. And that's really where the fun comes. And then a couple of individual shots where, so here's Devine, and this, and again, for those of you who remember this notion of diagonals shooting into the corner, then you create these diagonals coming in, and it adds to the level of energy. I'm down low, I've now got but I'm fairly close, and to go back to VG's point, I've gone wide on the lens, so we've got a kind of wide angle lens effect as well. That's distorting the diagonal slightly, and it's adding to this sort of sense of slightly off kilter. It's, we're removing ourselves from a passport photo. This isn't just about creating a likeness, this is about creating an energy and a story with it. And again, here you can see with Madame Jo, and at this point she's got her arms out as well, creating even more of these sort of use of diagonals and triangles, and which adds to this energy. And then this fantastically dramatic sky behind as well. And then shot of the two of them together. Now, it's not to say that this then supersedes any of the other shots. I mean, but if we go back to, say, this one here, what you realise is it's a very different kind of shot. Now, this one, this is still part of it. They have this photo, they've used this photo. This is the photo which is out on the balcony during a party, dramatic sky, town behind. So it has a place for it. But this one here has a totally different feel, different kind of photo. This is much more a kind of a poster event or something where you are advertising to sort of give a taste of what to expect, come to the show or what have you. It's a different kind of feel. And it's that understanding that when you've got the setup, explore with your camera, explore with eye level, explore with down below. If you can, get the steps out, shoot from above, play around and see what works. And it's not necessarily that you're after one photo, but maybe you're after this collection of photos. So that's really kind of where we got to with the first shoot, taking up the morning. And it was a lot of fun. It's again, there's this kind of, when I'm shooting with a client, there's a constant kind of what do you call it? Almost like you're kind of growing your understanding of how you're working with the other person. The first shots, we haven't built the relationship yet. I mean, we built. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's worth going off on a tangent a little bit here. Understanding that your relationship with your subject, when you are a people photographer, a portrait photographer, that your relationship as the photographer with the person you are photographing fundamentally affects the photography, not only in your individual eye, how you're seeing the scene before you, how you're deciding to interpret the scene before you, but in how they are reacting to you. Okay, this is a really important part, that if you want to get the maximum you can and the most interesting, and to be able to go places, that you have to build a level of trust. And if you are taking photos of somebody who is feeling uncomfortable, that is going to show in their eyes. So there's this constant level of, when you are with the person you are photographing, that you have to be aware of how they're feeling and trying to build on that and mitigate certain things where if it's starting to feel like it's going off track. And you're building that relationship. And the more, as you take the photos, and showing them the photos in the back of the camera becomes part of that, is then they can see what's going on. And then they can also contribute and go, oh, not so keen on that. Oh, I really quite like that. Oh, that's exciting. And then because you've got that feedback, you then feed that back into your own interpretations and then come back and start moving down that road a little bit more. And so it's a very, very organic process. And no, I'm going to go off on other tangents there, but anyway, so to come back then, let's move on to the second part of this. Actually, I'll tell you what, just before we do, let's do the usual little bit of, just to remind you that if you happen to be finding these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and you would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can do it. Of course, don't forget as well, we have the groups. We've got the Facebook group and we've got the Flickr group. Make sure you join them if you haven't already, and certainly in the Flickr group I think there's more flexibility. You can post images if you want to have the feedback and critique on, and there's discussions you can have, and you can put photos in for challenges. So there's plenty of places to try and kind of expand out a little bit more on, rather than just the podcasts here on a Sunday afternoon. Right, and yes, of course, don't forget to like the podcast here, and subscribe if you haven't. Click the notification bell if you want to know about future ones, and of course invite your friends along as well. If you know anybody who's interested in photography at all, come and take a look. And even if you know anybody who can't watch live because Sundays are their busy day, then we have 237 other videos of past podcasts. They're all recorded, they're all sitting here on the YouTube channel, so plenty to scroll through, skip through, dive into, grab snippets from. Right, okay, so let's move on then to the second part of the shoot. So what we decided was shoot one was going to happen up on the balcony of this top floor flat or apartment overlooking Dumfries. Shoot two then was going to happen inside a pub or a bar. Now, what would have been chosen was the Douglas Arms, or more kind of commonly friendly known, if you like, the Dougie Arms, which is on the Vennel in Dumfries. It's a very small bar, very small pub. In terms of pubs, it's not much larger than a living room, to be honest. But like all pubs, actually, it has its locals, it has its people who are die-hard fans, and that's the place they go. And Devine Tension runs quiz nights there, and so there's a whole kind of scene that's happened within that pub. There's a tolerance, understanding of diversity, inclusion, all these kind of things happen within this place. So what was fortunate for us is because Devine, Madam Jo know the owners well. We were allowed to kind of go into the pub in a mid-afternoon when the place was closed, and we could then sort of set up and do our photo shoot there without having to worry about interfering with clients and business or anything like that. So just to give you a little sense here of what it actually, sorry, let's close that one. And so at one point I handed my phone over to someone else to take a couple of quick, no, not that one, that one, yay. So this gives you an idea of the setup. So Devine has changed her dress, gone from the red into this sort of white, more kind of like almost wedding-y dress thing. We've got this bar. You can see it's not a big place. Now there is about as much again behind me, or in fact opens out slightly wider. So this what you can see here is probably about a third or quarter to a third of the size of the pub. There's more going on behind. The bar doesn't run. The bar more or less ends about here, so there's more space into the room behind. But as you can see, it's not a huge place. So here's the setup. We've got the bar. I'm here. Now, as with anything like this, the natural lighting, the ambient light of a bar, the curtains are closed, the overhead lights are on. The light itself is not going to be any good. So I'm not shooting, again, I've already decided I'm not going to shoot in the ambient light. I'm going to create a lighting setup. And so what I decided to do was I did a kind of started off with a 2-light setup where you can see I've got a stand here, almost make it out here. I've got a little speed light sitting on top of the stand here, and then over on the left, just out of sight here, just to the left of the bar, I've got again my large softbox with an off-camera flash in that one as well. So this is the first test shot. Go and stand behind the bar, click. And it's dark. So you can see there's a bright light coming over from the left. That's where I've got my off-camera flash here. No, I didn't use the softbox, just decided to use the flash. So it's a kind of hard light. And then I've got, over on the right, I decided to put a blue gel just to kind of highlight. But obviously at this point, the levels aren't right. And not only are the levels not right, but Devine Tension and Madam Jo are both they're both kind of lost. There isn't enough light falling directly onto them. Both the lights that I've got are kind of too much to the side. So I needed a third light. Now, as you can see, there's not a lot of light, not a lot of space here. So I set up a third off-camera flash, which I actually put on the window sill just here now. You can't quite see it because it's just slightly out of sight to the right. And I then pointed it back at the window and bounced the light. So behind and to one side, I then got bounce light coming off to light them up. And so once I'd done that, we end up with this. Okay, so now we've got the main light coming in from the left, we've got the blue light coming in from the right, and the bounce light, which is then, because it's bouncing and it's spreading, ends up being a softer light, is acting kind of as like the key light, which is lighting them up. However, at this point, the lighting still isn't right. As I played around with the shots, realising that because Devine's wearing this white dress, she's showing up. The bright light on the same side as her is just making her light up too much, whereas Madame Jo, she's getting too dark. She's got a dark dress. Now, I did try swapping them round, but for one reason or another, the balance didn't quite work in the same way. So what I thought I would do is I would shift the lights about. So I then swapped the lights about, and now I've got the blue light over on the left, and I've got the clear white light over on the right. Slightly better balance of light with this, but what we're up against here though is it just still feels, it didn't feel pub-like, it didn't feel like it was being shot in the evening in a bar. That light is just too bright. And I played around with different levels of it and then realised what I really needed to do was stick another coloured gel in. So while I had a blue gel over on the one on the left, the next thing I did was I put a yellow gel over on the right. And then once I'd done that, you can see it softens the light. And now I kind of felt like I was into much better balanced light territory. And then the third thing, also I've got three lights set up, and the last thing that we decided to do in terms of making an effect on the light was I used my smoke machine. So some of you may remember from other shoots that I've talked about, I've got a small little kind of smoke machine. You plug it in, and you can buy them for about £25, $30 or thereabouts for kids' Halloween parties. Just plug it in, and away you go. And you can see down here, you'll notice there's a little bit of smoke here, and essentially it's plugged in behind the bar, and just before I would take a shoot I could do the smoke around, give it a few seconds to dissipate, and it changes the quality of the light slightly. So the light that's now coming in from in here, you can see it's a very hard light. Okay, so it's not just the fact that it's white light, the shadows are very hard, the light behind it is very hard. There's nothing diffusing it. Whereas when you put the smoke in, it sort of softens it up, and it also kind of creates a little bit more mood. Now, smoking has been banned in pubs in Scotland for well over a decade. Can't remember exactly when it came into force, but probably 15 plus years ago. And but we still have this sort of sense of like a kind of smoky bar. Or when there's performances, when bands are playing or particular performers, quite often in dry ice or smoke machines go off to kind of create a little bit more atmosphere. So now I was once happy with the lighting I'd got, then it was a case of trying to set up. So this then is now a properly edited photo. The last ones are just straight out of the camera, unedited versions. Now I've got this, I've decided I've got space here to create a scene. And I suppose if we go back, let me just bring you back here just to give you a sense of what the space is. Well, again, you can see here we've got the bar, but key aspects to this, I think, are when you look here, there's the bar where you've got all the bottles are happening within this strip here. So you can see there's like a little line that runs round, and we've got the whiskey bottles over on the right, other spirits on the left. Got a whole bunch of different kinds of beer mats. A picture of the original Devine. I think anybody remembers the 1980s pop star. But Also, crucially in here, part of the mood and the feel of what we're going for is there's this sign up behind the bar, be nice or leave. And there's a sign above the door which says, no sexists, no racists, no fascists. Okay, so there's a definite statement within where we are about what's tolerated, what isn't tolerated. So you are both including some people and you are excluding other people quite deliberately. It's who you're deciding that is part of the culture. So these things kind of felt like they needed to be included as well. So if we skip forward again here, so our first shot idea is to have the two of them behind the bar. And now normally if it was just about them, I would have maybe cut this a little bit lower. I would have cropped possibly a little bit more like that for the balance of the two of them. However, it was important to have the be nice or leave in the shot here, and that becomes a part of what this photo is about. Then interestingly, so yes, and then with something like this as well. Now, so we're playing around with getting up on the bar, using the bar as part of a prop. This is the photo I think I used on the cover card for this podcast. Now, the be nice or leave is kind of lost. We've got be nice, which is quite fun. But I thought I will include in this one, make sure we've got the no sexist, no racist, no fascist. Yeah, so two versions of this photo. One, let's look serious into the camera. And then usually after you've looked serious for a couple of seconds, somebody bursts out laughing. The whole mood changes. And again, it's interesting. It's worth, again, in terms of the portfolio, in terms of making sure that you've got a selection of images. There are times when this kind of image, serious faces, is required. And then there's times when really you need to see the humour as well. So this one is more fun or more appropriate for however the photo is going to be used. So, and what I'm trying to do here is sort of using this little bit of the bar here as a frame. The arm is coming out of it and what have you, but we've still got what's going, the bits and pieces. And like I said, yeah, because I'm just realising my head was in front of it. We're making sure that we're including the no sexists, no racists, no fascists over that. Just realised the way the screen is laid out here, my head was blocking that bit off. Then there was a notion of, I decided what I wanted to do. I would have a go at, like we had out on the balcony. I thought, well, what about if we sort of do that kind of looking up aspect? So again, a little behind the scenes shot. You can see. So now I'm kneeling down. We've got Madam Jo up on the bar. She's leaning on Devine Tension, who's behind the bar for this shot. And so that's the scene. That's the quick shot. But as you know, just done in the ambient light. But when I go click, this is the photo I'm taking. And so again, you can see that there's a very different mood from the two of them behind the bar to now kind of Madam Jo up on the bar and me looking up at them. And it creates a different kind of power dynamic. So I did a couple of versions of this. So this was one version. And then this version was slightly different, cropped it slightly wider as well. So she's tilted her head over, so we've got playing a little bit more with the diagonals. But I've also left in, quite deliberately, the off-camera flash over here. And there's a sudden notion at that, with this, that by allowing the lights to be in the photo, it then kind of adds to that notion of the theatricality of it. Understanding with photography that anything that is in the photo is contributing to or detracting from the narrative you are trying to express. So generally speaking, when you're lighting a photo, you don't tend to include the lights in the photo because that's giving away the fact that you staged it. But by including the lights in the photo, it's then kind of almost like that breaking the fourth wall idea. You are deliberately making a point of the fact that this is theatrical, this is staged. And given the fact that these two, it's all about performance, and it is staged, and it is created, and it is, you are in on the joke while at the same time being entertained by it. I suppose, coming back to this idea that we, generally speaking, if you go and watch a play, you watch the play, and if the play is good enough, then you are absorbed in the play. You're not thinking about the fact that it's actors moving around on a stage with props and that it's being lit. You suspend your disbelief. You are absorbed in the story. But sometimes you can look at something and you can go, okay, I can see the props wobble. I can see I can see the lighting. I can see the act. But I can still be entertained by the fact that we're all in on it. We all know that you can see it. And in some ways, this is partly what drag is as well. There's no mistake that you go, oh my God, I really thought these were two women. And suddenly, I realise I've been conned all along, or I've been surprised by this. And especially when Madame Jo's got a great big beard. And there's this hyper-masculinity in with this hyper-femininity bit. The notion of drag itself is you're watching and you're in on the joke, you see, it's not a deception. It's sort of a deception because the man's dressed up as a woman, but it's not a deception because you can see that it's a man dressed as a woman. So you buy into it and you can be entertained by it while not being fooled by it, while still suspending your disbelief. And it's layers, and this is part of the fun of it. So taking this idea and realising that actually if you leave the lights in, you're also playing with the notion that it is a staged photo. And that sort of felt to me like it was really adding something extra. So I thought, well, okay, where else can we go with this? And then there was a lovely bit where we played around and then Devine, she goes up on the bar. And now, this is the unedited version, okay? And I'm sitting back there. We can now see both lights. So you can see we've got the that's the edited version. That's the unedited version. You can see the orange gel on the flash here. You can see the blue gel on the flash here. You can also see the smoke that's coming around. There's also this thing, because the bar itself is painted, or the wood in front of the bar is painted the same dark blue as the wall and the ceiling above where the beer mats end. That actually, when I look at this becomes cinematic. It's almost like you've just got this sort of strip inside here. And so rather than cropping, so I'll tell you what, let's just where are we? Yeah, let's open this with Photoshop. I'm just going to show you a little bit of kind of behind the scenes. So the natural kind of idea with this would be, if I was keeping the same ratio, is I would do something. You would normally do something like this as a crop, okay? Creating her roughly central. In fact, actually, maybe pull that in a little bit more. Do something here, so we've got the line going roughly through her head. We've got a kind of, and that's quite a nice composition here. So we're using a kind of rule of thirds. We've got a sense of sweep, got a sense of diagonal. We've got roughly even the kind of darker patch of the door here and the door over there. And that's a kind of, generally speaking, this is a kind of a composition I might have ordinarily gone for. But what I decided to do instead was, because of this sort of cinematic thing, I thought, well, okay, let's really make this cinematic. And so if I take that and then I kind of bring that down to here, and then I grab that and I bring it up to here, we go kind of widescreen now, but leave the lights in, okay? And at this point, I think it becomes much more interesting. Then there's a case of what I also wanted to do with the look of it. I wanted to make it look a little bit more cinematic. So I'll just duplicate that layer. And so playing around with filters. So if I go to camera raw filter, because bear in mind that this is the unedited version. I went auto, and then you kind of changes it a little bit. The effects then maybe kind of add a bit more clarity to it. But what I also then did was I went to colour grading. And in this case, there's a whole bunch of different colour gradings you can do to add different kind of moods and feels. And what I decided to go for was cinematic style CN2 is essentially where I started. And this creates a different kind of mood again. Now, I lost too much of the blue here, so if I mask that to make sure that's black, and then I had it, if you go to something like about sort of a third, 33, 34%, and then just very lightly paint back in some of that blue, and then just get a little bit of edge coming down her like that. And then at that point, you see, you're just kind of, I'm getting part of the effect that I want. Levels are quite low. You can see this, the histogram is bunched up onto the left, but I can drag that up, lighten it, probably up to about there, but so that again mask down the lights here, so that the light is coming up. So that's kind of where I started, and then I've gone in and I've done a lot more in the way of subtleties, and essentially we move from that to this. And this, then, I have to say, is, of all the photos I did, this is my personal favourite. There's such a sense of the cinematic, the theatrical, the cinematic crop, this theatrical, this absolute over-the-top pose. We've got the lights showing within it, and it's layers within layers within layers. Meg said, are you thinking about putting this onto a postcard at some point? It's not out of the question, Meg. I may well consider that one. What Meg's referring to is every now and again I'll take one of my photos and I put them onto postcards. And I use postcards in the way that other people use business cards. So I stick my images. So I'll have a selection of postcards with some of my favourite images on them. And then on the back I've got all my business details. And the thing about using a postcard to give away is, when you give somebody a business card, they look at it once, it gets thrown into a drawer and forgotten about. If you give somebody a postcard, they tend to feel like it's something a little. Postcards get put on the fridge, or they get put on the mantelpiece, or they get used as bookmarks. So there's much more life, longevity out of a postcard. And it also, because I've got several different photos which I use, I can have them in my pocket, and it's almost like, well, it's a little kind of handy portfolio in my pocket, to be honest. So yes, this is the kind of photo which I am personally so pleased with that, yes, could well end up on a postcard at some point. So then on to the last little stretch, just one of the last set that I wanted to show you before I talk about what's coming up next week, is to come back to into the kind of pub scene. So this one here, we've got, what I've got is I've got 4 different versions of essentially the same shot. So here we're looking straight on. They're both looking straight at the camera, no smiles, right? Fairly centered. We've got the be nice or leave in the middle, which is kind of fun given the kind of strict lights. Again, my head's in the way, but you can. So over in the right, over here, we've kept in the no sexist, no racist, no fascists, over in the right hand corner. So this becomes a kind of a summary shot. As you can see, we've got the blue light coming in from the left, we've got the yellow light coming in from the right. That lit up, but we've also got the smoke particles which are kind of diffusing and playing around with the light. So this was fun. But then, just like that other one, where when they're laughing, when they're smiling, it changes the mood completely. We then have this one. And, you know, different expressions, different having fun, exaggerated smiles, while at the same time there is humour in there too. So that then has a totally different feel to it. But then I did another one, which was this, where I said, yeah, I'll just kind of look at each other. And this was just absolutely lovely. This sort of put a huge broad grin on my face. Now you feel that there's characters within characters. Now it's not just a case of the character, the personas that they have created. It's also about the interaction between them on a different level. And this one, and particularly this one as well, which is the next one, where it looks like somebody's just walked through the door. I think these are sitcom folk. These are, you know, if you wanted to ever set up a sitcom, you wouldn't need to write a whole outline or anything to send off to the studio executives or the TV executives. You just send them this photo. I mean, if you think of Cheers, you know, set in a Boston pub or whatever, you know, and as yeah, Norm, everybody comes in. Every time the regular Norm turns up, everybody goes, Norm, shit, cool. You know, this is this kind of, somebody's just walked into the pub. Or it's this one where you've got the interaction between the two. So the sitcom of the two drag queens who run a bar is just waiting to happen. I feel like I could practically script it, you know, just without thinking twice about it. But I'm a photographer, not a script writer. But I still feel that this is a sitcom. Anybody who ever's out there who's got any connections in TV, have a think about this, because, and you would absolutely want to have these two as your starring characters. So hopefully that then kind of brings us to the conclusion of that. I hope you found that interesting. It's, for me, it was a hugely fun shoot. As so many of my shoots are, I go into a shoot where, fine, I know loads about photography, but I don't necessarily know that much about the world that I am photographing. Now, that's true of whether I've photographed a potter. Well, I don't understand the world of clay. I photographed a tailor, where I don't understand the world of making a suit. Photographing a baker, I don't understand the world of baking, commercial baking. And it's true of pretty much everything, almost everything that I photograph. But that's the fun of it. So stepping into a world of drag was something I knew nothing about. I know quite a bit more now, but still nothing like the amount that they know, because they exist in this world. Now, on coming up in June, I mean, if you want to go onto Facebook or Instagram, type in Madam Jo, that's J-O, or Devine Tension, you'll find their pages. Maybe when I get round to sorting out the menu bit for this, I'll stick links into the description below. You can follow them on Instagram, follow them on Facebook. I'm not sure what other social media they're on, but at least those. They also have events coming up, and they've got quite a large event coming up at the beginning of June, where there are other drag queens coming in from around the country, and there's going to be this big show going on in Dumfries. Now, as things stand at the moment, there's a possibility I might be going along and doing some behind-the-scenes photography with that, which could also be a huge amount of fun and interesting, and taking me into this world, which I don't know much about, but I get to explore with my camera and my eye, really, for composition and light, and looking for opportunities for a good photo. So hopefully something will come out of that. Right, okay, so that's pretty much us. Next week we are, what are we doing next week? Oh yes, next week is the Picture Within a Picture challenge. So if you remember last week, the podcast was set about, where I was talking about that notion of picture within a picture, frame within a frame, photo within a photo. So that notion where you have a picture, but then there's another aspect of it where there's a sort of picture embedded within it. So you get layers within layers, and sometimes layers within layers within layers. So you can really kind of elevate the depth of a photo through that. We talked about lots of different ways you can approach that, from windows to mirrors and reflections, to paintings themselves, to other parts of the photo which are maybe offset from another aspect. So go back and check episode 237, where I talk in depth about picture within a picture. And then if you would like to take part in that challenge for next week, where I will be going through all the photos, get your photo through to me. So either place it in the Facebook group, the Flickr group, both of those, well, facebook.com/UPwKA, Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, /groups/UPwKA, or flickr.com/groups/UPwKA. Either of those, you can place your image in there and tell me a little bit about your photo. Tell me a little bit about why you decided to take it, any interesting anecdotes or anything that happened about trying to create the photo, or what decisions you made, because that's always an interesting part of the of the process, of the picture, and then get the photo into me by Friday the 25th of April at Saturday morning at the latest. Like I say, tell me, but if you don't do any of the social media, you can email me, kim@kimayres.co.uk. Again, send me the image and tell me about it. So yes, So next Sunday, the 27th, I will then go through all the photos that have been sent in. We can hopefully inspire each other, and that's part of this, is about the idea of it's not just me putting up photos, but you send in your photos, and other people can see how you've approached this particular topic and maybe get ideas to go out and play with themselves. So that's all part of the fun of it. And of course, there will be smug points to be won. Everybody who sends in an image gets an automatic 10 smug points. Everybody who comes and watches live, leaves a comment, gets an automatic 5 smug points. And then I'll be picking my top 3 for a bonus 30, 20 and 10 smug points as well. At the end of all that, we'll be able to see who's won the accumulated smug points for April. So that's all there to play for next week. So that basically brings us to an end. Thank you ever so much to everybody who's turned up, to each of you who've left comments as well. And also many thanks to Madam Jo and Devine Tension for bringing me into their world of the drag queen. Huge amounts of fun. Okay, I hope it's been a bit of an education for you as well. Take care. Look after yourselves. See you next week. Bye-bye.